South Africa filed an indictment with the International Court of Justice against Israel. And Israel has said that they will defend themselves. There are rumors that they're going to have Alan Dershowitz do it.
The charge is genocide, we should say,
right.
Crimes of genocide. So to have this formalized, I think and for South Africa to have done it, given the past relationship South Africa had before, when it was the apartheid regime, when they were kind of brothers in apartheid, and now for it to be done in this way is historic and notable. But Dershowitz would be hilarious, right?
Well, it would also it would give you a sense of the savvy that the Israelis have about U.S. Politics to the extent that that is relevant. I mean, presumably, right? Any type of defense that Israel mounts would be for domestic consumption, Israeli domestic consumption, and then American consumption. I mean, because at this point, it really is. I don't know if Joe Biden can in any way be influenced on this, but certainly, Bernie Sanders, we've seen now, has come out calling to block the aid to Israel totally. You saw Tim Kaine come out the other day talking about the idea of conditioning aid. Senators and congresspeople are far more subject to pressure, and particularly since it seems that Joe Biden has absolutely there is no, I don't know. I mean, it is bizarre to say that a president doesn't seem to be making any type of political calculation. But one thing that resonates with me that Peter Beinart said, and Peter Beinart, to his credit, had written a piece in the run-up to the 2020 election about Joe Biden's relationship with Israel and being the uber hawk. But he said, you can judge someone's reaction to what's going on in Israel with their reaction essentially to the 1619 project or something like that, more or less.
I said this on Left Reckoning last night. It was about if you believe in the myth of America's kind of glory, then you're more likely to believe in. And
particularly its founding.
Promised land on hostile territory.
Exactly.
Is what he said. Yeah.
And but here is an Israeli spokesperson responding. This is Itamar. This is Ben Gvir.
Sorry, that's not from the previous.
No, sorry, that's not from Ben Gvir. This is an Israeli spokesperson responding to the charges.
Condemns South Africa's decision.
But yeah, if responding to the charges of genocide by South Africa and just says we're getting it slowed down here. I said this before, but it would be very funny if Dershowitz gets tapped and then the Epstein client list comes out right afterwards.
Condemns South Africa's decision to play advocate for the devil and to make itself criminally complicit with the perpetrators of the October 7 massacre. On October 7, South Africa openly aligned itself with the Hamas rapist regime when it blamed Israel for Hamas's violation of the ceasefire and covered up Hamas's crimes against humanity. It is now aiding and abetting that machinery of genocide. Collaborating with the perpetrators of genocide is, alas, not new to South Africa, which backed Omar al-Bashir after he was indicted for genocide in Darfur. While the Hamas rapist regime does everything to maximize civilian casualties with its despicable human shield strategy, Israel is employing measures unprecedented in the history of warfare to minimize civilian casualties. We have been clear in word and in deed that we are targeting the October 7 monsters and are innovating ways to uphold international law, including the principles of proportionality, precaution, and distinction, in the context of a counter-terror battlefield no army has faced before. That is why we spent weeks urging residents of northern Gaza to evacuate before the ground offensive.
Pause it for 1 second. I just want to remind everybody, because it's so offensive to anyone who has been following any of this. We played a clip of or I think we played the whole thing. The New York Times did a 2 or 3 minute video, which clearly shows that in the wake of encouraging Palestinians to evacuate northern Gaza for southern Gaza, Israel then proceeded to drop 2,000-pound bombs in the area where they were told to evacuate to. This is ordnance that the U.S. no longer uses in dense areas because of it being basically just dumb bombs that do anything but protect civilians. Gaza, prior to almost 80% of the population being sequestered in less than 50% or 25% of the landmass, was already the densest place on Earth. So that is just, aside from like the framing and this and that, it's just outright fabrication. The idea that that no modern army has is just a lie.
And
it's just a lie.
Yeah, it's brazen. No modern army, no countries in this situation again, where they are backed by the most powerful country in the world in their massacre of an entrapped population that they control the borders of. Like, the uniqueness of the situation also means that, like, you can't basically draw any comparison to any other warfare again, because, like, how many Israeli civilians who weren't hostages have died since October 7th. And then let's have a conversation about if it's a war or not, or a massacre. And before we move on, I just want to point out like 3 different propagandistic things. And first of all, it's notable when they say this in English, who they're speaking to. This is to an American audience. Advocate for the devil is how he opens this. Now, I'm not Jewish, Sam. Do you believe in, do Jewish people believe in the devil?
We don't.
Yeah. So this is a message to Christian Zionists in this country, right-wingers and Christians in general, that this is a holy war against the devil. This is a holy war against the barbaric rapist regime, just to dovetail it with the now renewed focus as we look backwards towards October 7th, 2023, on the day January 3rd, 2024, after 30,000 Palestinians are presumed dead, that we're going to be talking about these savages as rapists once again, to continue to dehumanize what he also just says there, the monsters, the October 7th monsters. This is all incredibly deliberate.
And we should say, like, the charges brought by South Africa are not on behalf of Hamas. They're on behalf of Palestinians living in Gaza. That the Israeli government equates the two as being the same is indicative of their campaign. Go ahead.
Terror battlefield no army has faced before. That is why we spent weeks urging residents of northern Gaza to evacuate before the ground offensive. To warn civilians, we placed over 70,000 phone calls, sent 13 million text messages, left 14 million voice messages, and dropped nearly 7 million leaflets, urging civilians to evacuate temporarily for their safety, informing them about humanitarian pauses and precise evacuation routes. That is why we secured humanitarian corridors for civilians to escape Hamas. That is why we set up a helpline for Palestinian civilians to tell our army if Hamas was stopping them fleeing. And that is why we designated a humanitarian zone in one of the only places in Gaza where Hamas was not already hiding behind civilians. The Hamas rapist regime bears full moral responsibility for all casualties in this war that it launched on October 7 and is waging from inside and underneath hospitals, schools, mosques, homes, and UN facilities.
I don't think
in giving
so.
Political and legal cover to the October 7 massacre and the Hamas human shield strategy, South Africa has made itself criminally complicit with Hamas.
I mean, it's just all It's just all garbage.
When he starts going on about like the stats of like, this is the number of phone calls we placed, the number of text sent, it sounds like a McKinsey consultant trying to like justify a budget they got or something.
You know, one of the problems with getting some of those voicemails and those phone calls very well may be the fact that you cut off electricity during
internet.
Key moments and the internet.
And to the extent they do reach their intended recipient, it's like not a nice, oh, thanks for the heads up. It's a dystopian, oh, look at this drone that's come shouting at me that I need to leave or I'm going to be bombed in 5 minutes.
And I mean, this is one of the poorest populations on Earth. I've seen the footage of the second Nakba here, where Palestinians from the north were told to go to the south, to go to the Rafah crossing, and they were on foot, told they couldn't look backwards, walked elderly, children, people in wheelchairs. Many of them don't have vehicles, cars, the ability to go anywhere. And the United States gives a ton of aid to Egypt. The Rafah crossing going into Egypt is at the behest of Israel, Egypt, and the United States. So this is not like the Palestinians have any agency even in that scenario as well to leave. Plus, when they say temporary over and over again, we know that that's not true.
Well,
and
what are they going to
come back to? Yeah.
Israel has literally gotten rid of at least 40 to 50, maybe 60% of the housing in the entire Gaza Strip.